I'm to the point where I can't wait any longer.
Coming up, the local employees who are in desperate need of pay. Plus, the Rudy Dean case could have some conflicts of interest. Hear from the man who's at the center of the controversy. And another phase completed in the Stone Spring Connector project. What happens now?
This is WHSV News 3 at 6.
Controversy surrounding a Rockingham County man charged with a shooting he claims was self-defense. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Rogers.
And I'm Melanie Lofton. Thanks for joining us tonight. Now, if that man is found guilty, he could spend the rest of his life in prison. This case and a possible conflict of interest in it is our top story. Now, this is Rudy Dean. He's charged with aggravated malicious wounding for shooting another man last January. Dean was back in court for a pretrial hearing today. News 3's Elizabeth Lamb has been covering this case since the shooting happened last January. Elizabeth, what new details came out of the hearing and what's next for Rudy Dean?
Mel and John, Dean is waiting for his trial to come up this coming April, and until then he has to wear a GPS monitoring device. And it's that GPS device and the company behind it that caused controversy in the courtroom today, according to court documents. Associate Pastor Michael Donovan works alongside Pastor Cindy Carr at a church in Harrisonburg. Carr's behind the hundreds of supporters who want to free Rudy Dean.
We just continue to stand for justice.
Court documents show Donovan's faced several felony charges and is on probation in Virginia for 9 years. He's also served as executive director for Nexus Programs, the company that gave Dean his GPS unit. He says there's no conflict of interest there, just desperation coming from the prosecution.
The Commonwealth Attorney seems interested in attacking anyone who supports Rudy Dean, or more specifically, anyone who disagrees with the Commonwealth Attorney.
Donovan says his professional relationship with Carr has no bearing on the case. He also says anyone questioning Dean's whereabouts can pull his GPS record and make sure he's obeyed the law. Dean supporters held a prayerful rally to show his family's support.
There's no distance in praying, and so there's an army raising their voices on behalf of Rudy today.
An army, Donovan says, that the assistant Commonwealth's attorney wants silenced.
They're going to come after you. They're going to call you names. They're going to try to take the attention away from a case that they can't win because the evidence isn't on their side and put it on people who have nothing to do with the case.
The assistant Commonwealth's attorney today had no comment for us. Donovan has since stepped down as executive director of Nexus Programs to become a law student, but he still does serve on the program's advisory board. He says Nexus Programs was happy to help in Dean's case. Mel, John.
Now, Elizabeth, what's the involvement of the protesters in the Free Rudy Dean group?
John, hundreds of protesters have signed a petition that's gone statewide and has also gone across the country. It could be used in the courtroom to help with selecting the jury when this case heads to trial. Live in Harrisonburg, Elizabeth Lamb, WHSV News 3.
Elizabeth, thank you. And we will continue to stay on top of this case. Dean is scheduled to be back in court in April.
Hampton-Sydney expels one student for screaming racial slurs outside of the college's minority student union just hours after President Obama was re-elected. The college has also punished 3 other students who were involved. Hampton-Sydney's president says about 40 students chanted racially charged slurs, threatened to hurt the minority students, and set off fireworks outside of their house on election night. A student court found the students guilty of violating the college's code of conduct.
Well, George, it's chilly, but it feels like it should for this time of year.
It's very seasonal, but there's a bit of warming coming our way. Oh, yeah, now the tea's in. There's also a meteor shower tonight. Going to be a little cool out there, but clear skies, good night. Geminid meteors. You should be able to see a lot of them. Let's take a look, see what's happening right now. Not much in the satellite radar, and that's the reason, 2 reasons. One, you'll be able to get a good view of the meteor shower tonight. That should be taking place. You might be able to see a few meteors after 9 o'clock, but generally between 1 and 3 in the morning. And right now, skies are clear, and they're going to remain that way through the night. Now, if you're going to go look at some meteors tonight, dress warm. It's going to be chilly. 8 o'clock, 34, 11 at 31, and by 2 a.m. into the upper 20s. It'll clear, a cold night, and winds continue out of the south, though, and that should produce a bit of a warming trend. Yes, I did mention warmer. When and how warm will it actually be? I'll have that information in just a few minutes. Now back to the news.
Some workers at Transprint USA in Harrisonburg say they haven't seen a paycheck in 3 weeks.
And several of them are refusing to go back to work until they get paid. Lisa Pappas met up with them today to find out what the issue is. Lisa?
John Mel, a lot of these workers say they can't afford to support their families anymore, and they just don't understand why they're not getting paid. I met with a couple of them who now want to share their stories in hopes to get some answers. Transprint USA workers like Scott Leak say they don't want to go back to work until they get paid.
When all of this started, they were just messing with me. But now they're messing with my family, my livelihood, my place to live. And it's getting to the point where my family don't know where their next meal's coming from because we just can't afford it.
Leak says the company hasn't given them a paycheck in 3 weeks, and it's taking a toll on his family. He says it's bad enough that he's suffering, but to have this affect his son is even worse.
One of the hardest things I've had to go through since all of this has started was me telling him, I just don't have the money to get you anything for your 18th birthday.
Some of the workers just received a paycheck for the first time today, with only a third of what they're owed and no hours recorded of the time they've put in. Danny Roberts is another worker who's struggling without the pay. He says he has to commute from Waynesboro to Harrisonburg every day, so that fraction of a paycheck just won't cut it.
That's not even enough to pay maybe 2 of my bills and maybe put a little bit of drop of gas in my gas tank. That's it.
It's not enough for many of them, so some of them won't go back until they get answers.
Of the, let's say, $1,700 they owe me, they paid me $215 today. That's not going to pay my mortgage. That's not going to feed my family. That's not going to put gas in my vehicle to get me back and forth to work. We just need answers, and we need our money.
The workers I met with have been at the company for about 20 years. They say they love their jobs and they don't want to leave, but they can't afford to stay without a paycheck. We reached out to the senior vice president of the company, and she denied to comment.
New at 6, Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell says he's willing to give teachers a raise, but only if the state agrees to some of his own stipulations. McDonnell says teachers will get a 2% raise as long as lawmakers pass the Educator Fairness Act. Under that act, teachers would have to work for 5 years to be considered for tenure. It also includes a controversial proposal that would define a teacher's incompetence, meaning teachers will be defined as incompetent if they get 1 or more unsatisfactory evaluations. Critics say this would make it easier for schools to fire teachers. If the act passes, it will be the first time the state will give teachers a raise in 5 years. We talked to the superintendent of Harrisonburg City Schools to see what he thinks about McDonnell's proposal.
When you have an ineffective teacher, the current system is very time-consuming and it's very costly to remove an ineffective teacher. So I think the governor proposed a balance, still making sure that teachers have their due process rights, that the process is fair.
These potential changes have a lot of teachers, parents, and even students talking about education reform. Let's go to Melanie over in the Web Center to see what you're saying about the issue. Mel?
Well, John, we posted a question on our WHSV TV3 Facebook page, and as you can see, we are getting a lot of feedback. The majority of you said yes, it should take longer than 3 years, but there are some who say that's long enough, and others who say tenure shouldn't even be an option. Now, there is still time for you to vote on the issue. Search for WHSV TV3 on Facebook and then like our page. John?
Well, some good news for state employees in West Virginia. They'll get an early start to their Christmas break. Governor Earl Ray Tomblin says public employees will get a full day off on Christmas Eve. In the past, public employees have only had a half day off when Christmas Eve falls on a weekday. Still to come, thousands of people in West Virginia are saving the date, but turns out they're waiting for the wrong day. If they don't change their calendars, they could get fined or even arrested. First, a look at your First Alert planning forecast tonight for Stanton.
Good evening. I'm Hugh Lance with the Holsinger, Lance, Sipe, and Gokenheier Investment Group of Wells Fargo Advisors. Here are your stocks of local interest for Thursday.